If you're working a full-time job and you want to quit to do online coaching, then what's the pathway to replace your salary? So I'm Yusuf. We've helped over 1,000 people to quit their day jobs and become full-time online coaches. And here are some insights that you'll see from Toby and Clarissa, who have done exactly that, growing their online semi-automated fitness businesses using the systems that we teach. And they've gained more time freedom, impacted more lives, and increased their income. So you'll hear how they made the leap, how they monetized their expertise, and how you can as well. We all quit our corporate jobs to do coaching online full time. And there's a few bits of crap advice that you get from like, oh, you got to burn your bridges and you just got to dive in with both feet. And like, yeah. And it's like, it's probably the worst advice that you can get because it's going to be the highest risk, most scrambling, scarcity mode kind of mindset that would put you in if you just hand in your notice. All right, boss, this is me. This is me now. I'm going to go from zero. Like, there's a much more sensible way to go about it. So if you don't know who we are, my name's Yusuf. I'm ex-investment banker, doctor, went to do online coaching full time. This is Clarissa, solicitor, quit her job to go full time as well. And this is Toby, used to work for, can I say?
Yeah.
Okay, used to work for the NHS. And we've all made a similar jump. There's a few good and bad lessons that you can get from this if you are in a similar position.
So I would say I had a short but intense legal career. So I qualified, but I realised that I didn't like it relatively early on. And I think it was a bit of a push to qualify. And then I did a complete U-turn and went and worked for a mental health charity. And then I went back to legal. And then now I have my business. But that was all within the space of sort of 4 years.
I worked for the NHS for 17 years. Then when I turned 40 a couple of years ago, decided I wanted to do something more fulfilling with my life, something that lit a fire inside me that I was passionate about. So decided to start an online business while still working, and then gradually reduced my hours working for the NHS until my business was viable and I could take it full time.
I think that's the key point, isn't it? That,
Yeah.
like, you gradually did it so that there was no sudden leap of faith. It doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. What was the timeline from you being like, I'm going to start online coaching to quitting the job?
So I started the business properly around July 2 years ago, and then I quit in January this year. And no bones about it, some of that was a difficult time where I was having to work hard at both things to make it work. But the payoff from that is you get to build up your business, and then you get all of the freedom and the benefits of having done that when it becomes viable and when it's the right time to make the decision.
Yeah. I think there is a perception that you can come into propane, run one challenge, and then live up and then become solely self-employed. And I think you need to pace yourself through it and make sure that it's the right time to go fully in on it.
You're having to like red line a little bit evenings and weekends when it's literally full time. And I guess did you both do part-time, so like 80% full-time hours, and you just went like dipping balls?
So mine was probably at the worst time where I had a legislation deadline. And so I had to cut my propane work right down so that I was only doing it on the train to and from London. So I had to think about how I could be as efficient as possible with my business to make the return on investment I needed to go fully in on that. And I think that was possible with the right mindset towards the business.
That's a real shift I've found with like, you're in a corporate 9-to-5 job, you're being paid to be there anyway, regardless of your level of output. And suddenly there's a shift to, there are infinite number of things you could waste your time on that still are considered work. But actually, you've got to really focus on the needle movers, particularly when you're on a train to and from London. Like, you've got such limited time to push things forward.
Yeah, I think it sharpens your focus and makes you it forces you to make like difficult decisions about what is important, what is going to help me to move this forward to a point where I can actually see the progress. I'm starting to coach clients. I'm starting to build some revenue in the business, and that confidence and the momentum keeps you moving forward. And when you've only got, say, 2 hours on a train or an hour in the evening at the end of my workday, for example, you've just got to make sure that hour is well spent.
Yeah. And having the appropriate buffers in place as well, in between your corporate job and your business, because you can't go full steam ahead in one and then straight into the next. You need at least a tiny buffer in between. You need to allow yourself that space so that you can go into the business work with the right mindset.
Yeah, it's almost, it sounds contradictory that you have to you have to accept that you need to work some evenings or some weekends, but that you also need to make sure that you've got strong boundaries in place. But it is true that you need to make sure that you're looking after yourself at the same time, because you can't do everything. And most people have got other commitments in their life outside of just work and their business. But I would say that all of that is worth doing, because ultimately then you get all the time back. Once you reap the rewards, and then you have more time for the other things in your life.
The way I've seen both of you guys do it is like you built the bridge while you were working, and that bridge is building the machine that's going to generate leads long term, so that you can then comfortably leave the job and know that it's not just feast and famine of like random sales. It's I have a system for my lead generation, my sales. Did you get resistance from people that you were working with or friends and family? It's like, what are you doing? You're throwing away this qualification, been working here for so long.
People at work didn't really understand it, but they didn't understand the level of risk I was taking. But I did also have people came up to me, say, for example, at my leaving do, and they were like, I really admire your courage and I'm quite jealous. I wish I'd done this like 10 years ago. Like, people who are a bit older. My family were like completely supportive. My partner has like backed me more than I back myself at times, and my kids like supporting me as well. And that is like, that obviously feels great, puts a bit of pressure on, but having that strong support network in place has been really valuable. But what you said about the sustainability, I think is massive. So it's not like, oh, I got 10 sales and then no sales for 3 months. It's a repeatable revenue that means that I've got confidence in what I'm doing.
Especially because a salary is so safe and stable, especially as a doctor. It's the most stable thing during lockdown and everyone's losing their jobs. It was this regular thing. And so to go from that to complete up and down is like, ugh. But as you say, I don't think it's people are being like deliberately negative or detractors. It's just that it's outside of a paradigm of like, well, this is how the job and the life works. And so when it's like, oh, you're making money on the internet, it's kind of breaks people's brains a little bit.
What about you?
I have had some really interesting reactions. So I think professionally, it didn't make sense because I was in a very stable position. It was really hard to fire me. And I got offered the job a few weeks after I left. They said, come back for less hours and more pay. And it was like, it just didn't make sense. It was like, why are you doing this? There was such a clear trajectory for me to do really well. And it was a very well understood career profession, I'd say. So there was that. They didn't get it. But then also from a family perspective, my grandma to this day rings me and goes, oh, so you're still not a lawyer then? Like, she's claimed to have this vision of me and she won't share it, some sort of dream that she had. And she just doesn't get it. And you're battling with that generational confusion. And I think it's an opportunity, I suppose, to actually, the way I view it is like, well, what a privilege that I'm actually in this position where I can use my autonomy, particularly as a female in business, and take that risk and step into something quite unknown that will inevitably like pay off in a few years' time. It's actually that fear that is driving other people I don't have, and that is a real privilege that I can act on that.
That's a superpower. Because that generation value status over
freedom and income and flexibility.
Yeah.
So for them, it's like, oh, but lawyer, that's a prestigious thing.
Yeah.
In Waterford's like, you can't grab hold of lawyer or doctor or whatever. And it's like, who are you impressing?
Exactly. And I think when you get quite deep with it, I suppose it's like, who are you doing this for? Because I wasn't in law for me, because I was not enjoying it. And so therefore it's like, you have to ask yourself the question of like, who am I doing this for? What am I achieving? And then you realize that the prestige or whatnot is actually not what's in line with your values, and therefore you probably shouldn't be doing it. But I suppose then it's about how do you then go about actually leaving that, and that's where the sustainable approach comes in.
And then also suddenly the structure of a 9-to-5 job is decimated, and you're like, oh, I wake up, I could literally just do nothing all day after whatever. And I think Toby's been really good at like designing, even like designing a week with a lifestyle goal in mind, because it's like, okay, I've got the Lego blocks now, I can build them however I choose to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blocking out time in my calendar for my kids and things like that. Spending probably way too long messing around with what I could do on any individual day, to get to a point where I'm like happy with the cadence. And I think some of that comes from the organizational skills, the execution focus from my previous work. So working in an environment where it's about delivery and obviously being organized and managing loads of different things, taking that and applying it into your own work means that it's even more fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not wasted skill. It's stuff that's directly transferable if you do it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you got any advice for people who are like in a corporate job, not really enjoying it? They've got some level of niche expertise in something. They want to start making that leap, but they feel like it's an unsafe job.
I would say that it's about working out what you want to offer, or what act of service or what value you want to provide that you would provide completely for free. So for me, I had a lot of conversations with my niche already because it was so important to me, and it was such an integral issue within females and sports that I knew I really resonated with and I wanted to address. And therefore then any profit that I developed from that at the start was almost like a bonus. I knew that it was important if I wanted to leave my job, but I was so driven by it that it was just so important. Can you relate to that?
I think that's amazing advice. Probably better than what I'm going to say, but it's all good. So I would say talk to people.
Yeah.
Talk to anyone you know who runs a business in whatever capacity. Talk to people who have some sort of potential need or interest in the thing that you have got an idea about, and just get a feel for their problems, their interests, their goals. The more people you talk to, the more avenues you will open up, and the more it will unlock insights yourself over the potential opportunities that are available to you. And that was really helpful for me. Like, I talked to a couple of people who were online PTs. I talked to people in completely different industries who worked part-time corporately and then ran their own business. And all of that was just so helpful to solidify what I wanted to do in health and fitness and give me the confidence that it could actually work, because people were doing it, if not in this industry, then in others.
100%. There's a lot of limiting beliefs that comes from the blinkered view when you're in a corporate or a large organization, and you think the only progression is if I go from like analyst to associate and associate to director, and that's like the only scope of progression, and nothing. You almost think within the confines of the corporate structure, and instead, if you throw that out and see people go outside of that and outside of the industry entirely, there's kind of, it's like a slap to wake you up from what's possible. Don't put so much pressure on yourself as well. And with my advice, like, you've got the safety of a salary, and then you can take the steps as needed. And sign up with a mentorship, of course. But seriously, it just lays out the steps, because you cannot figure this stuff out yourself if you're in a rush, or you can, but it's going to take you years, and there's just is so much more expensive to pay with time than it is to pay with money.
I think that's the thing. And I think there's this perception of outsourcing that it's really, really expensive, but it's not. Like when I first signed up with Propane, I just wanted a system, and I was working out like things that I couldn't do. Like I wanted to create a Notion platform for my clients. I paid someone on Fiverr to do that. And I think there's a perception that that would be really, really expensive, but it wasn't. And then it just allowed me more thinking time for what I wanted in my 14-day challenge.
As a business owner, you are an organizer of resources. It doesn't mean you have to go and like do all of the Notion building and stuff yourself. Otherwise, like, because that's not what, unless you're also an expert web designer and an expert like coder and everything else, like, so, well, why are you doing online coaching if that's the case? Like, this is the time versus money.
But that feeds in nicely to what you were saying there about utilizing your resources. Like a lot of my successful clients, particularly in corporate spaces, they just utilize some networks that they have, like when it comes to web design or just talking to someone else in the space, just understanding what platform did they start on is just so important.
Yeah, I think if most people in a decent corporate job have got some expendable income, and that gives you a bit of a platform to invest in things that are going to accelerate your expertise, help you learn new skills, help you learn new things, and outsource some of that. Like it was immediately obvious to me that I knew nothing about sales and marketing. And I was like, well, I could take all this time to learn all of this myself, but that's going to take a year and I probably won't be very good at it. Or I can like find somebody who knows what the hell they're doing and work with them instead. And that was a no-brainer.
There's some limiting beliefs that people have. I've seen it loads within medicine because it's so defined, and so the track of progression is like you go ST1, ST2, registrar, senior registrar, consultant. It's all very laid out for you in that path, and it's gated by certain exams that you have to pass at each stage. The people getting that blanket view, and I was on this group it was called Alternative Careers for Doctors. And all the questions were like, what qualification do I need to become a life coach? What qualification do I need to become an online nutrition coach? And it's like, it's a reasonable question, but the whole framing is, I need to ask someone's permission to do this thing, rather than like the number of confident idiots out there who are delivering quite bad advice, but are smashing it online because they don't have that internal, it's imposter syndrome really, that's like stopping them from doing it. And funnily enough, the ex-corporate people, we've helped over 1,000 personal trainers and online coaches to go full-time online. And the people who absolutely smash it are the ones who have that corporate skill set of organizing their time, organizing their calendar, good communicators, all that stuff. And they can leverage it so well to online coaching. But often what gets in the way is they're either afraid to put themselves out there, or they're so used to being really professional and sensible and stiff, and that doesn't carry across well online.
I think in the corporate world, you don't see yourself as there's always someone higher, and there's like someone that you are having to report to, and you don't necessarily see yourself in that leadership position, but you can become that, and you can take those qualities from your other job and sort of almost step into that higher role.
I think if you feel like you have a passion and an expertise in something that's not your job or your career, I think you have a duty almost to do something about it. Like you mentioned, the quality of the fitness industry is shit. Like the quality of coaches and PTs is really, really poor.
There's no barrier to entry.
No. So if you have a passion and a desire to help people, then I feel like you have a duty to help raise the standard of the industry. If you see people online and you think that they're spreading misinformation or outdated information and you know better, if it then becomes a choice for somebody who wants to improve their health or their mental well-being or whatever it might be, between some guy who's giving crap advice or you. And therefore, you can build a business so you get the benefits of the autonomy and the time freedom, the location freedom, but you're also helping people and improving the quality of the industry.
So true. And if they're doing it, and you know that you can get a client a better result than that, as you say, you can either sit and be like, oh, that guy's a dick, like he's giving bad advice. We can go, well, I'm going to be the change that I want to see.
Yeah. And you don't have to feel ready for that. Like, I remember when I got my first client and I was like, oh my God, like, okay, like I've got to create a system, and like, what if she doesn't like it? And like, actually, you just have to go with what you've tried yourself. You don't have to have 20 years of PT experience and a nutrition qualification. You just have to think, okay, how did I do this for myself? That's all the evidence I need. And then I'll build around that client.
Yeah. If you can get somebody a result, then you're on your way.
Yeah.
And then it's about where are the gaps in your knowledge? And
I
then
always say you've just got to be one chapter ahead. And actually, if you got someone who just wants to get slightly bigger biceps, they're not going to hire Ronnie Coleman, Phil Heath, because they're so far removed from what it's like to step into a gym for the first time, and the anxiety of, oh, the other people judging me and all that stuff that the guys of the upper echelons just don't. That's not their day to day. So what was the decision point where you were like, table flake, I want out of this? And then what are the benefits that you experienced since quitting?
So for me, and I think this will apply for everyone, when you start thinking about making the decision, it will feel too early, it will be scary, and it will be probably a little bit before you're ready. Certainly, I've had to take a financial hit to put the effort in to build things up, but it was totally the right decision at the right time. In hindsight, it was just a scary decision to make. I got to a point where I had some viability in the business, and I realized I didn't want to work weekends anymore, and I just had to bet on myself and go all in. And that was incredibly exciting to achieve that goal that I'd set myself like 18 months previously. It was absolutely amazing.
So cool to see.
And then in terms of the benefits, like a lot of my working life previously was lots of back-to-back meetings, lots of like emails, Teams chat, and like very reactive, and loads of context switching, which was one of the reasons I wanted to do something else. And having the autonomy to build a week that I enjoy, build a business that I love working in, and then just it's often surreal to get clients telling me that I'm like changing their life, and then I'm like, they're getting life-changing results and everyone around them, and I'm getting paid and I'm building a business for doing that. That's just such a surreal situation to be in.
Especially when you're in like a 10,000 person organization where it's such a tiny cog in this massive machine, and it's hard to even see what the end product or result is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember for me so distinctly, I was at a barbecue with my friends, and I'd just gone through some personal changes, and everyone was talking about how much they hated their jobs. And I thought, this isn't me. I just thought, someone's got to break this cycle. And again, similarly to you, Toby, it was scary. Was I making the financial ROI that I wanted? Yeah, no. But I knew that my lifestyle was so unsustainable. I was in contradiction with my business message, which was sustainability, holistic living. And so I wasn't living in alignment with my values. And I knew that something needed to give, and that I needed to think about what I wanted to give up. And with me, like the job I was doing, it's all right, like paid the bills. But I didn't want to be just thinking, oh, this is okay. You know, I wanted to be doing work that was solely really passion driven, which is what you said. So I took the leap. It was earlier than I anticipated, but it paid off. And I'm really grateful to myself for making that decision, because now I look back and I think, well, this is how far my business has come in only a year. Like, think about how far it's going to go in like 5.
It's a silent trap of how comfortable it can feel, because then there's more and more sunk cost. And I kept thinking to myself, oh, I'll just get to my end of my F2 year, I'll just get to registrar, I'll just become a GP. And it's like, I'll look in the gains at each stage. But then all you're doing is, you're like, oh, now I'm 8 years deep, oh, now I'm 10 years deep.
Yeah.
It's harder to quit.
Yeah. And I think I did this thing where when I did have my notice in, I was like, oh, I'm not sure I want to give this up. Like, you start to see the positives in that role.
Yeah.
and then you're like, am I going to regret this? But then the second that you leave, it's like, no, that was the right decision, and you see things from a different perspective. I think in terms of the benefits for me, it completely in alignment with you, in the sense of, like, sometimes I step off of client calls and I feel so emotional that I have that ability to impact other females, and I can create this empowered female community that's really important to me. And I'm not just doing jobs work that's okay, but also it's, really mundane things, like I can sit in my bed in the morning and have a coffee that I couldn't do before, and I can go and train when I want to train, and I can do triathlon without someone telling me that I have to be back at a certain time, or really, really mundane things, not flashy things, not like baller things, just like I can still have the same coffee that I had when I worked in my corporate job, just with an extra 10 minutes in bed.
Yeah, like I've listed a bunch of ways that I define success beyond just financial gain, and like I haven't set an alarm to get up in the morning since I left my job. And just that one little thing, just waking up naturally, maybe some days it's a bit later, and some days it means, maybe I can't train right now, but I can just rearrange my schedule and go, well, when the kids go to school, I'll go to the gym then. And just having that freedom that you would never have in like a structured 9-to-5 has been transformative.
I hope this video serves as this is not a pipe dream, that Toby and Clarissa have literally done this. They've picked a niche, they've solved a problem for that niche, they've made the gradual transition and been able to quit their jobs, and they've just followed a process for that, built a predictable system for lead generation and fulfillment. So it is not a pie in the sky thing to do this. You just have to be systematic and apply half the energy that you do into your corporate job into this. You've got the skill set already. So if you would like to become an online coach and leave your corporate job too, then click on the link below and book in a call and with us. And then literally, Toby and Clarissa will coach you with me and Johnny in a private thread to help you do the same thing. So hope you enjoyed. Speak to you soon.